As you know from the previous lectures, we have defined this function, and here we are calling it. So it checks if the given temperature is greater than 7, and it returns warm if that is true, and cold if the temperature is equal to 7 or less than 7. That's fine. But what is the use of this function in a real life setting? Like, who is giving this input? You as a programmer, you are writing this function for someone else so that they can use it, but you don't expect them to edit the Python file, like to have an editor like Visual Studio Code or other editors, and then you cannot just tell them to go to line 7 and change the value and then execute that code to get different outputs depending on the value. So how about prompting the user to enter a value, and then the user types in the value, and then we get that value and process it in our function. In that case, we get that value and put it in here in the function call. Let's do that. So we've got a function there. We want to get a value from the user. To get a value from the user, you use the input function. The input function gets an argument, and that is the message you want to show to the user on the command line. For example, enter temperature. Maybe put a colon there if you like. You can write whatever you like. Let me save this script and execute it. You see, now I executed it, and this input function, what it does is it freezes the execution of a program and waits for user input on the command line. So if I input something here, like 7, in this case, what's going to happen is that this expression here will be equal to 7. However, because we didn't do anything here, nothing will happen. If we print out this value, for example 7, you'll get printed out the value of this, which is 7. So there you can put anything you want. Hi there, and you get hi there printed out. What I would suggest is, instead of printing this out, you'd first want to put it in a variable. That would make it more readable. So user input, and then you can do whatever you want with that variable, like lower it. So to print out the lowercase version of that, hi. So you get hi with lowercase letters. Okay, back to our function. Let me now try to print out the weather condition function output with a value of, well, user input, whatever the user enters there as input. So I'll execute the program now. The program will ask me with enter temperature. The program will ask me to enter a temperature. So the execution is frozen at this point. This line has not been executed yet. It will be executed after we give a value here and press enter. So let me write down 6. Let's see what we're going to get this time. We get an error. Let's read the error carefully. It's about file basics.py, which is our file. Okay. The error happened at first at this line here. So here, print weather condition user input. When Python tried to execute this line, it couldn't do it. And why? Well, you have to follow the error. So still line basics.py line 2 at this line. So when Python tried to execute this line, that line called some other things in the script, and the error was in this line 2. So when the function call tried to call the function, it tried to execute this line. So if temperature, it tried to compare 5 with 7, and then it got this error when it tried to compare 5 with 7. So when it tried to execute this line, in other words, see what it says. Type error. This operator is not supported between instances of string and integer. So string and int, which means this was a string and this was an int. So our user input was 7, was passed in here, and that was compared with 7. It seems that our input, the user input, was a string. And that is true, and that was the point I was trying to make here. Because whatever input the user writes in here, even if it's a number, Python will actually convert it to a string. So 7 in fact will be converted to a string, like with quotes or double quotes inside Python. But that has an easy fix. What you can do is you can convert this value, which is the string 7, you can convert it into a float. Be careful with the parentheses. So float is a function, it has an open parenthesis in here and it has a closing parenthesis in here. Input is also a function with its own opening and closing parentheses. So now if I do that, enter temperature 5, I'm going to get the correct answer. And let me be transparent with you. Let's again input, get user input, enter some input. Let me now print out the type of user input. Execute, enter 6. You'll see that 6 actually is a string. That's why I am converting it into a float, so that 6 this time will be a float actually, which looks like this. You can print out the actual number here, the actual converted number, the float version of the number. Execute again. 6, so 6.0. You can also use int here if you like. 6, so you'll get 6, which is equal to 6.0, of course. But float would be a better choice, because I can show you why. If you enter 6.3, for example, int will not be able to convert it, because that is like doing int 6.3 in double quotes. So int will get confused, it will not know how to convert that into an integer. It does, however, convert 6 if it was a simple 6 without a decimal point. Float will convert both 6 and 6.3. And that's how you use user input in Python.